democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Well, as 2010 draws to a close, what is the role of the United States in the world today? From the ongoing wars in Afghanistan and Iraq to the cuts in social programs here at home, where is the emerging hope for change around the world? Today we spend the hour with award-winning investigative journalist and activist Allan Nairn. In 1991, we were both covering Indonesia and occupied East Timor and witnessed and survived the Santa Cruz massacre, in which Indonesian soldiers killed more than 270 Timorese. We survived the massacre, but the soldiers fractured Allan's skull. Over the past 3 decades, he's exposed how the U.S. government has backed paramilitary death squads in Salvador, in Guatemala, and Haiti. He also uncovered U.S. support for the Indonesian military's assassinations and torture of civilians. Among other awards, he's won the Alfred I. DuPont Award and the Robert F. Kennedy International Prize for international reporting, the George Polk Award for his expose of Pentagon and CIA funding of paramilitary death squads in Haiti, and the James Aronson Award for social justice reporting. He's just back from China and in the region of Asia over the last year. He's joining us in our studio today for the hour. Allan, welcome to Democracy Now!
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Well, it is a tall order to talk about the role of the United States in the world today. But why don't we start right there?
Well, now as the U.S. is losing its edge economically, it has one clear comparative advantage, and that's in killing. And it's using it. Obama has increased the attacks on Afghanistan and Pakistan. Brookings Institution last year estimated that for every one militant, as they put it, killed in Pakistan, the U.S. drones killed 10 civilians. And they said that was okay. They defended the U.S. policy. General Michael Hayden, former head of the CIA, also the National Security Agency, also former director of national intelligence, said that our default position is to kill our adversaries, referring to the use of the drones. Harold Koh, who's the legal advisor for the Justice Department, earlier this year at a State Department briefing on the results of the review conference on the International Criminal Court, described the international legal environment that the U.S. had helped shape. And he said this: "No U.S. national can be prosecuted for aggression. We ensure total protection to our American forces and other nationals going forward." So, in that situation, the U.S. defines who the adversary is. The default U.S. position is to kill the adversary. When you kill the adversary, you kill 10 civilians. What are the survivors, the loved ones of those civilians, supposed to do when the international legal system is rigged so that there is no peaceful redress, so they have no place to go? It's unjustified. It's terrorism by the U.S. law's own definition. But it's also ominous for Americans, especially ominous in a historical moment where the U.S. is losing its edge. Right now, it still has the massive military advantage, but how long is that going to last? Other countries have more people to field as troops. Other countries can manufacture weapons more cheaply. The U.S. still has the edge in military technology, but in today's information age, that can't last very long. So if the appeal to decency can't wake up Americans and make them say stop, maybe the appeal to self-interest and fear can do it. Imagine a moment not too far in the future. Some of the technical magazines just started writing about this, where foreign countries would have the capacity to put drones in the skies over New York, over San Diego, over Alabama, over Chicago. How would Americans feel about that, when the discretion on whether to push the button on the missile and launch it at anyone in the U.S., a member of Congress, a member of the president's staff, a GI, someone walking down the street, when that discretion lies with someone in some foreign capital, some commander. And imagine how Americans would feel if those overseas controllers of the drones flying in the skies over the U.S. decided to apply American standards if they decided to apply the Brookings Standard that says, okay, if we target one American military planner and we kill 10 civilians, that's okay. If they decide to apply General Hayden's standard, that, well, it's our default position to kill these adversaries. And if they decide to apply the U.S. State Department standard, which says no matter what we do, we can't be prosecuted. That's the situation that the U.S. is setting up, and it's going to be increasingly dangerous for Americans as time goes by.
The international soldier death toll in Afghanistan is, well, I think as of this broadcast, around 709. Almost 500 of those are U.S. soldiers. It's the deadliest year in what we're in the 10th year, the longest war the U.S. has been involved in, ongoing war in the history of this country. What about Afghanistan, what you feel needs to be done?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the killings of U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. To me, one of the most interesting points that's made in the documents released by WikiLeaks came out in some of their earlier releases, particularly their Iraq War logs. If you read those, you see that when the U.S. military is reporting on U.S. killings of civilians in Iraq or in Afghanistan, they almost always say, well, we did it to protect our forces. Some of our soldiers came under fire, we responded, and we wiped out the house. In some cases, they end up wiping out the whole village compound, and that's why those civilians were killed. Or there was fire from the ground. Our men were in the air in a helicopter. We returned fire. It turned out that it was a wedding party on the ground, and they were shooting their guns in celebration, but we did it with the intent of protecting our forces. And there's a certain logic to that. If you're a soldier and you're in combat, naturally you want to protect yourself and protect your friends, and you will do everything possible to do that, including killing someone who you speculate might be firing at you or might potentially fire at you. So that inevitably sets up a situation where when you send troops into a country in a hostile situation, when you invade a country, that means, really it means in a practical sense, that in order to protect your troops, you have to kill civilians. You have to kill them in large numbers. And that's what the U.S. is doing in Afghanistan. That's what it did in Iraq. And that's what it's setting up to do in a series of other places. It's an inevitable result of the initial act of invasion, and in legal terms, what is often the initial act of aggression.
In Pakistan, you were talking about the drones, and we just read this headline about U.S. drone strikes in Pakistan killing at least 33 people over the last 2 days. On Tuesday, drones struck a pair of sites in North Waziristan, killing 15 people. Separate attack Monday, 18. U.S. has carried out more than 116 drone attacks this year, more than double the amount from last year. I think the figure of some poll taken in Pakistan, about 59% of the people of Pakistan feel the United States is the enemy, yet the United States is pouring billions of dollars to shore up the government of Pakistan.
Yeah. That poll would actually suggest that maybe the U.S. image is improving a little, because there have been some other polls where it's like 70 and 80% of Pakistanis saw the U.S. as the main enemy. What the U.S. is doing with the Pakistan military is remarkable, especially when you compare it with the Iran nuclear situation. The U.S. is saying that, well, maybe we'll have to invade Iran, or maybe we'll have to let Israel invade Iran because Iran is developing nuclear weapons, and Iran is a hostile Islamist regime. Well, the U.S. also says, as documented further in the WikiLeaks releases, but it said this publicly, that the Taliban in Afghanistan, and also the what are called the Taliban and their allies of Pakistan, are backed by the Pakistani military. are backed by the ISI, the Inter-Services Intelligence. That is the same Pakistani military that controls the nuclear weapons that Pakistan already has. That is the same Pakistani military that is receiving billions upon billions of dollars in U.S. aid. Yet the U.S. Is not saying, oh, we have to cut off that Pakistani military, we have to invade Pakistan because they're backing the Taliban. So the solution for Iran possibly getting a nuclear weapon is to invade Iran. The solution for Pakistan actually having a nuclear weapon and actually backing the Taliban is to give more money to Pakistan. There's no underlying logic to it except the logic of sustaining war, of sustaining conflict, of sustaining tension, of having an ongoing drama that provides the top politicians like Obama, like Bush before him, a chance to prove their toughness, a chance to boost their popularity, and which sustains the vast military complex that chews up so much of the U.S. economy. Once you get beyond that, you can't come up with a coherent explanation as to why the U.S. should be doing that.
What do you think the U.S. should do right now with Afghanistan?
Get out.
How?
Pull the troops out. The only legitimate role would be if you could find a way, and it's not easy now in a state, in a place that is so devastated and corrupted, if you could find a way to pump in money that would serve as a kind of reparation for the damage that the U.S. has done to Afghanistan, and maybe have that money go to rebuild houses and feed hungry people, that would be a justified U.S. role. But the military, the intelligence people, just get them out. They are only making matters worse. They are only making matters worse for the civilian population of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and they're also only making matters worse for Americans who worry about being bombed when they're on an airplane, who worry about car bombs in Times Square. Anyone who seriously looks at this sees and often says and often writes that this creates more animosity, more people who want to attack the U.S. So get out, and you save more lives on the ground there, and you also diminish the danger to Americans.
We're talking to award-winning investigative journalist and activist Allan Nairn. His articles appear online at allannairn.com. That's ALLANNAIRN.com. We'll continue with him after break. Stay with us.